Okay, let's do another lightning round question. And Vic, let's start with you this time, and then we'll come this way. Will you invite President Trump to campaign with you? Why or why not?
Boy, is that a loaded question if there ever was one.
That's why he asked it.
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, certainly if the president asks, I would probably accept, of course. I mean, he's the president of the United States. Who am I to say?
But I'm asking, will you invite him?
Invite him. I mean, it depends on what the situation is, possibly. I don't know the answer to that. I really have to think about that some more.
Doug, what about you?
Yes, I would. He's the President of the United States. There's a lot of things that I'm frustrated with, how he talks about people and so on, but he's getting things done for America, and he is making some changes that are really good for Colorado, and if he wanted to come to Colorado and campaign, I would accept that. Yeah, I'd welcome that.
Walker?
Well, hold on one second. Would you invite him to do that?
Yes.
That was Joey's question. Yes, you said.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, it's going to be an all hands-on-deck effort to beat Jared Polis and the Democrats. And so any Republican that's willing to come to Colorado, bring them all. And bring the President of the United States, who I agree with policy-wise. And, you know, we were supporters of the President's tax cut. That's going to result in savings for 75% of Coloradans. That's going to bring $1 billion of economic benefit to this state. Hooray.
Would you invite your cousin Jeb Bush and President Trump to the same event?
Why not? It's a big tent. We need them all.
All right, Greg, you get to answer that question too.
You know, I've always found myself having to fight my own battles, but at the end of the day, you know what, the president's doing a great job. I would invite him, and I would invite him because he needs to have a platform so that people in Colorado can truly understand what he is that he's doing as a leader. And I think we can all stand tall behind what it is that he's doing. So yes, I would invite him, and I would ask him to stand with me as we have our values stand shoulder to shoulder together.
Doug, I'd like you to take a shot at that.
Yeah. So I would have signed this bill. I think it was a step in the right direction, but it was didn't really address the underlying problem, which was not talked about really, and that is that we have a 16-person para board, 12 of whom are beneficiaries of para. They are conflicted. We have to have fundamental governance reform, or we're going to have the same issue again. How many of us in 2010 thought that we'd solve this issue? I'm upset as a taxpayer that here we are, 8 years later, we've had the stock market more than double over that time period, and yet the liability to para is over double what it is. And we haven't had leadership on it. I was surprised that the governor, it was newsworthy that he showed up at 10:30 on the night the session ended, that he was there. They hadn't seen him the whole session. Where was his leadership on that? That's not the way to operate. We have to have strong leadership in order to make changes, and with para, we have to have fundamental governance reform.
All right, Vic.
So I appreciate the question. I've put forward a very specific plan to reform the public pensions without increasing taxes or fees and keeping current beneficiaries whole, and it works as follows. If you're an existing beneficiary, you'd be completely unaffected. If you're an older state worker about to retire within the next 10 years, we're going to change your average from the last 3 years' average, which currently is, and they get paid 75% for life, to the average of their last 10 years of wages. The third part of my plan is we're going to take newer state workers and we're going to convert them from a defined benefit to a defined contribution plan, effectively a 401k plan. And finally, we're going to create incentives to shed 20% of our state workforce and replace them with temporary workers, preferably our kids coming out of our state universities that want to serve in government for a couple of years, not build a career in government, bring a millennial perspective in. They would get a lower wage, but they'd get up to $30,000 of student debt relief. If we did a combination of those four aspects, we can true up the entire fund without increasing taxes or fees and preserve the fund long term. But it is a $41 billion fund, of which $2.5 billion a year that we're paying out in beneficiary benefits. It's not a crisis, but it is a serious problem. And as we talked about earlier, basically the unfunded liability has doubled over the last 8 years.
All right, thank you, Vic.
You know,
go ahead, Greg.
8 years. 8 years we've been talking about this, and no leadership. You know, we have to come to the last week of the session and a governor that knows he's not seeking re-election to be able to pass something. That is just wrong. That is just poor leadership. You know, I think I'm standing here and thinking, you know what, I would not have signed that bill, and I would have called a special session. I would have called a special session to make sure, you know what, you guys need to do your job. You need to focus on this. We need to make sure that what we're doing for the future is the right thing. let's just not give them something that you guys are going to forget and say, well, we did something. Something's better than nothing. How about we do the right thing? You know, it's been a long time since government stands up and says, let's do the right thing for the future. Let's not just put a Band-Aid on it again, and let's forget about it for the next 8 years.
Well, Greg, let me ask you the same follow-up I asked Walker. Now, it's easy to say somebody should pay. It's harder to say who should pay. Tell us who should pay. Should it be the workers, the retirees, or the taxpayers?
You know, everybody wants a simple answer. You hear what the question is? Somebody has to pay. Basically, what he's saying is, I want to know who you're going to take a flesh, a skin off of.
That's exactly what I'm asking.
Okay?
Tell me.
And what he forgets is that we're talking about people's future. We're talking about people's retirements. We're talking about people, how they're going to live in the future. You know, and I'm with Doug. We need to figure out what happened with the trustee and the board and how we're moving forward. You know, I'm going to tell you that at the end of the day, we're probably going to have to ask everybody to give in a little bit. But I'm with Walker on this one too. It shouldn't be the taxpayers that constantly is doing this. But we need to make sure that we understand how we invest in our pension funds and understand how we move forward.
All right, thank you, Greg. All right, we're going to jump to, we're running out of time, and I appreciate the candidates limiting their answers to a minute. In some cases, it's going to be 30 seconds, but I will mention that. Here's a 30-second question. Greg, I'll start with you. Does it make sense for Colorado to continue to offer a tax credit for electric vehicles, given the fact that probably, I would guess, that the vast majority of people who take advantage of that credit are probably not at the lower end of the socioeconomic scale? Can you give me a yes or no?
No, it does not make sense.
All right. Vic, yes or no?
Absolutely not. It's
Doug.
corporate welfare at its worst.
No, I think the total tax credit on a Tesla is almost $15,000 or something like that. You know,
Yeah,
between
actually,
the
it's
states.
$12,500 if you include the federal tax
Have you
credit.
bought one, Aaron?
No, no. No, actually, I bought two.
You bought two.
Walker.
No, and if you look at the numbers, it's a de minimis economic impact.